Good morning, good afternoon, entrepreneurs and profit first thought leaders. I'm so excited today because we have a guest speaker here on our podcast, and her name is Susan Gatti. Susan is a performance strategist. She's also a speaker and a coach, and she is the CEO of ImmixID. And ImmixID, what they are is they specialize in advising consulting companies on how to turn their expertise into modern training products. And these modern training products are important because they drive massive results for the clients that they serve in terms of generating alternative revenue sources for their clients. So I am so excited today because Susan's going to talk to us about generating new income in our business, doing something that we already do best. Susan, if I could welcome you to our platform, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you for coming. We're just so excited about just this thought and this idea. Now, this is unique because a lot of small business, there's something called this human capital, these ideas that we treasure and we try to keep quiet so nobody gets these ideas. And you're really taking it to a different level. You're actually making our ideas publicly known. Tell me about this. How did you come up with this idea? Where does this come from? And tell us more about it.
Awesome. I'd love to. So my whole career has been in learning in a variety of different ways. I ran corporate universities for many, many years. I transitioned into a consulting role and into private practice. And so for the past 10 years or so, we have been partnering with major companies and smaller consulting companies to help them create what we like to say learning that drives performance. We had kind of positioned ourselves as, your go-to person to help you take your content and, kind of move it to the next level and create these massive results. And I have to tell you, I did it for so many years, but the truth was all we were doing was creating awareness. And it wasn't until I took a personal class of my own where I was in a completely different type of learning environment that I had never been a part of before, that I saw the most massive results and success for myself. So as an individual consumer of a program, it was an amazing, amazing experience. And it completely flipped everything I knew about what was successful corporate learning that I had been teaching for so many years. And so I was sort of forever changed and could never go back to creating, these one-day workshops, these 5-day workshops, which believe me, I love. And they have an amazing place in how you connect with your clients, how you build your business. But if you're looking for that sort of signature flagship program, then, we've kind of flipped the script on how we do that. And believe it or not, our signature programs are a lot of times a minimum of a 6-month experience. And so that's where we actually see results happening. It's that connection and that staying together over time. So we perfected it. We built it for ourselves. We have 2 flagship programs that we run, and our success was so great that we said, you know what, we want to go out there and help other consulting companies, other businesses to take what they're already doing, to take their expertise and to catapult it into a brand new stratosphere. And we've been doing this type of work now for over 3 years, and it's been amazing. And we almost never go in a classroom, if you can believe that.
Wow, that is different. So Susan, tell me about, what does one of these programs look like? What does that look like? Like, we can even use my industry. We're kind of boring, right? Accountants. What does that look like, having a program like that?
So the number one flip that you need to make if this is the road that you want to go down is that, remember this, because a lot of your audience and a lot of you out here that are listening today, you're being hired by other companies. You're consultants in some way. Someone is hiring you because they want a result. And when you provide them classroom training, all you're giving them is awareness. And awareness is good, but that's not what they hire a consultant for. They don't want to know more about their job. They want to increase their revenue. They want to increase their reach. They want to add dollars to the bottom line. We'll work with companies where they want to reverse it, right? We've worked with retail companies that were experiencing large amounts of theft and loss. So they were looking to recoup money. We worked with a bank that they knew if they could get their employees to all count money in the same way, they could literally and dramatically shift the amount of reversals they needed to make. And so teaching someone how to count money or teaching someone a loss prevention strategy, sending them to a 1-day workshop is going to give the awareness of how to do that. But unless you stay connected to the consultant over time, because you're missing out on the implementation phase and you're missing out on the ultimate internalization and where it becomes just a natural part of your life. And that's true for leadership, it's true for management, it's true for any of those fields where you want somebody to do or become or act in a different way than they did before. The reason it was really never very popular is that it was just too expensive to do, right? So like, you know, the way our model is set up, we're used to sort of traditional classroom training. I mean, to fly people around the world, to bring people out of their job, you know, traditional programs had people out of their workspace for 8 hours at a time. There were just too many obstacles to be able to come back over and over and over again. And truly the thing that changed it for us and the thing that allowed us to propel this into this brand new space is and are these two-way continuous communication platforms. So believe it or not, things like this have been going on for many, many years on Facebook. This isn't actually anything new. What's new is that in the corporate world and in more of your professional environments, Facebook isn't necessarily like your go-to training platform. You know, most companies, the firewalls that and everything, can't even get into it. But now we have a lot of programs that are allowing that to happen, like Teams. Workplace has an enterprise, or Facebook has an enterprise division called Workplace. And we've even gotten to the point where we're building social learning communities on private networks and giving people everything you love about Facebook without having to go to Facebook. Because it really is that ability to stay connected over time that makes the difference from awareness to implementation.
I love that. I know, like, whenever we're doing consulting work, you know, especially when they're short-term projects, like you mentioned, like when they're these one-off projects or they're 1 week long or 1 day long, you know, one of the things that I think gets missing a lot of the times is just that support, you know, that accountability, that holding you to the fire, that not only will you learn this, but you will do this and we will help you walk it through. You're right. It takes at least, what did they say? 21 days to make a habit, right? And then
There's a bunch we use. It's like 10,000 hours for mastery. It's 16 times. 16 times you have to hear a concept in order to move it from short-term memory into your working memory, which is insane, right? Because we bring people into a classroom, we give them a webinar, we give them 2 hours, and we expect them to go back and do something with it. We don't even remember it in that amount of time. So connecting people together in a community environment that's easily accessible. All of our communities you can access on your phone, on your desktop, wherever you are, and then you're constantly being refreshed. It's one of the big pieces of the concepts. So simply you're going from hearing something to, you know, actually being able to remember it. And then that connection where you're able to get on regular calls or have access to your facilitator and really be able to ask questions, gain insight. So the program I just finished one up right now. I have one of my own programs going, and it's a 6-week startup. And we do live working sessions every other week. They're an hour long. So we teach one skill and then they go implement. In between, we do a 30-minute coaching call through our social platform. So they come on, they tell me what they've been working on, where they're succeeding, where they're struggling. We give them guidance and direction. They share amongst each other. So they're hearing what other people are doing. And then they go back and finish off. And then the following week, we start the next topic. And people love it. Love it. So we're literally taking the same amount of time you would have spent in a couple of day training, and we're simply lengthening it and making it easily accessible and keeping you connected to the people that you've been learning with and your facilitators.
oh, wow.
And in the virtual environment, it's really easy to do. And honestly, I have to almost thank the pandemic. So I am definitely the person that finds the ray of sunshine in everything. So we know our model works, and we've been doing this for a long time, but we meet with a lot of resistance because people believe that being in the classroom is where they learn. They're confusing the love of connecting with people in the classroom with the dislike for learning in an e-learning course or a video. You know, tell our people as they're building them, you are the star of the show. People want to be connected to you as often as possible. So we have to figure that out. But they need infusions of you when you're not available. So that's when your e-learning courses, your on-demand modules, videos, your tutorials, your worksheets, all of those are there so that someone can access them when they need them, but they're not the star of the show. They're not what people want. They want you and they want your expertise. So the pandemic has really helped us to catapult people into the virtual environment, which they didn't really want to be in. And they're realizing the value and impact that sort of flexibility to your learning, which has been great. We see a lot more of this taking hold because people are far more comfortable with this type of, interaction in the virtual environment.
Oh yeah, no, that's really neat. I remember like 4 months ago when we had a conference, we had to find a hotel, we had to rent out a facility, then we had to bring in lunches, right? And
Oh,
it was this whole
yes.
ordeal, right? And
Mhm.
and you can use things like Zoom and really it doesn't really have a cost other than the monthly cost. I think you even mentioned Facebook groups, right? The social learning aspect, being able to do that. And Facebook, which doesn't even charge you money. So talking about increasing profitability by providing more value, right? That's
Mhm.
just amazing what we can do now.
And yeah, expense has been like the biggest thing. And then the other thing that it's allowing us to do, which I think has been terribly exciting for anyone that's in the learning and development space, is we're literally elevating the role of your facilitators. So like their job is no longer about teaching you the how to, like the how to can get recorded, create a video, and all of that goes in your on demand. You assume now the role of coach and guide and expert, which is what our people are. That is what helps people to get to that actual result. And that is truly what has been like the biggest missing piece in sort of typical classroom training, and the expense and just the time out of the business. So we're able to take that 8-hour session and not so much change the number of hours, but spread it out over a period of time. So you're only out of your business for, shorter amounts of time. And whatever you need as far as follow-up goes fits into your schedule, not mine. It just flips the whole thing around and makes it a very learner-centered and learner-driven experience.
Wow, I love it. And I'm a mom, so I have kids, they're not teeny kids anymore, but they're still you can't quite leave them alone, 9 and 12. And I remember the ordeal of just having to coordinate with my husband without, hey, I need to go out of town for our conference and you're gonna have to figure out daycare and pick up and drop off. And now, it really doesn't have to happen when I'm doing something like this, right?
Yeah. Yep. 1,000%. I mean, I was set to speak at a conference, a learning conference in Orlando right before the pandemic, everything was shut down. And honestly, it was going to be about maybe $5,000 till it was all said and done for me to fly there, and the price, and then, all your extras. And I was really only presenting for like an hour. I mean, obviously I was going to go to the conference and see other things. It got canceled but moved virtually, and I was able to accomplish the exact same goal right here from my space and connect in with everyone that I would have connected in that bigger space. And you give people all of this time back in their schedule, which is amazing. And then the other thing is it's now recorded and it lives somewhere. So if there's that nugget of knowledge, if there's that thing you want to go back and look at again, it's right there at your fingertips for you to access when you want to. So I'm a big morning exerciser. And that's a lot of times when I listen to like all my recorded content. That's when I do my podcast or whatever it is I'm working on in my business or working on with my own personal development. It's like that's the time that I listen. And then at some point later, I'll engage, in a different way, which is, and that freedom and flexibility is amazing.
I love that. I don't know if conferences will ever go back to the way they were 5 months ago. I really
It'll
don't.
be really interesting to see. I mean, I do believe that there is a lot to be said for face to face, and this is one of the things that we've been helping companies figure out is we don't necessarily want the pendulum to swing too far one way, but how do we, now that the door is open, how do we really, get the process working and use the system so that you are strategically meeting with people when you need to, and then utilizing all of the other tools when you don't need to, and being able to discriminate about that time. Like the conference, the in-person conference isn't our only option right now. That I think that's a huge win, across the boards.
Exactly. I know there'll probably be fewer in-person conferences that I attend in the future.
I, I
It's just
know.
too wonderful.
I
I mean,
know.
not the
I know.
pandemic, but the convenience of the other things that have resulted out of
Yeah,
it.
or just think about how many more, like maybe you'll still go to that one conference every other year or every year, but how many more conferences will you go to, or will you sign up for, or will you have the opportunity to connect into that would have never been a reality for you? I love that side of the coin, as well.
Exactly. Especially for us introverts, it's an excuse to hide out, right?
Yes, yes. And for you introverts that wouldn't normally get up in a room of people, you might find that you're very comfortable in a chat conversation. You might find that easier for you to respond to a threaded discussion after you've had a little chance to process and think, as opposed to being like in a classroom setting where the conversation is happening right now. And if you're not a part of it right now, you're not a part of it. But when it lives in a virtual world, it's when you want to access into that conversation. So I feel like it gives the people that are really comfortable engaging live and in the moment their opportunity. And it gives the people that aren't a place for them to feel far more comfortable with it as well. It was sort of interesting with my son, who is definitely on the more quiet and reserved spot. Like learning from home was the best thing that ever happened to him. Was the best. He loved every minute of it. Being social all the time for him, being in a crowded classroom all the time for him, was far more overwhelming than I think I had ever realized. And so when he could do little bits and then rest and come back to it, like that just really worked for him. Really what's happened from a learning perspective, now that we're sort of all in virtual, whether we want to or not.
Exactly. 2020, 22 and 21 school year is going to be very interesting just in terms of like how people shift, in terms of like, you're going to find out those who learn better online. That's going to become very obvious of who performs best in what situation, which I think is really neat. So tell me, going back to this online learning and this online programming, and really almost like a conference, but it's spread out over 6 months, more of a conference plus a implementation is what I'm going to call it. What is the biggest challenge of implementing one of those? Like what is the hardest thing about really going forward with that type of model?
So that's a really great question. So I find that for people that are typically used to creating training, the focus has generally been on, what do I want to teach people today? What is it that I think they need to know? What do I need to teach them? We generally build our programs on like the how to. So if all of a sudden I've said to you, I don't want you to use your time in the how to, we're going to record videos, you're going to do, we're going to put this over here. All of a sudden they're like, well, I don't know what that means then. Like, so what does that mean? It's really a process of transitioning people from the expert that teaches the how to becoming the coach that helps people guide through to the outcome and to the end, and opening up conversations and having space for that, and being the facilitator instead of the answer giver. And so we do a lot of sort of mental mindset work with people to help them shift from their typical role, more of the how to the, well, the more of the coaching type role, which is, well, tell me how it went for you. What worked? What didn't? Where did you struggle with the most? And kind of pulling in and sharing your insight and guiding people through that natural discussion, as opposed to just sort of teaching, the straight facts. That's one of the things that we see as, a little bit of a challenge. And then it's really just figuring out what is the right process. So we have 4 main components that we teach people to do. So your how-to always stays, that's your on-demand library. And then we do what we like to call the live learning event. So this is opportunities where you are actually engaging with people in a 2-way continuous platform where you are enhancing their learning. So it could be challenges, it could be I'm like blanking on some of the things, but we do challenges, we do activities, we'll do contests. To give you a perfect example, when we teach customer service training right now, odds are if you poll your audience, it's not that they don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it. So we spend all of our time teaching them the 4-step process, but none of our time helping them role play examples or show good examples or ask questions and let people respond to it, then they don't get that implementation piece. So we'll flip it and we'll do a 30-day Facebook type challenge instead of teaching a one-on-one class. We'll give them one of their principles, service principles, and then we'll ask everyone in the community to come back and share how they did it. And then all of a sudden you're getting all of these different perspectives. So that's sort of really exciting. So we help people build out what those live learning pieces are going to be. And then there's sort of always the coaching component. And then there's this, which is your integration piece. But then the other piece that's brand new a lot of times for people is this idea of repetition. So, how do you take, whatever you had on the PowerPoint during that one session and repackage that into 2 or 3 different posts, so they're seeing that information multiple times as they're going through. So those are really our 4 components. And so the biggest piece is helping each client to figure out what's the right mix for us. What is the right mix? What is the right length of time? How much do we have to devote? And then quite frankly, for some people, it's just figuring out the technology that works. Because like I said, Facebook is like the best, just simply because they are the experts in, the social learning, but it's not necessarily an option for like 90% of our corporate clients. So as technology has caught up with that, it's really beginning to take hold. Teams has been an amazing solution for, our corporate audience to have that place for people to connect.
Yeah, I can imagine, because in a corporate environment, there's confidentiality concerns and, no one wants to potentially be on there and have a slip, right, that goes under their permanent name, and which could happen in Facebook.
Yes.
But that's
Sure.
interesting, being able to use Teams to do that. That's very interesting.
Teams has been a great addition, one of the best ones for corporate environment.
Oh, wow. And you're able to get people from different companies, or is it all from the same?
No, with Teams, you can have intercompany. So the main company hosts it, but you can invite people from other companies into that.
Oh, wow.
And it is sort of set up like Facebook, which is great. So like it's a closed community. So only the people, you can have open communities or you can have closed communities. So only the people that are supposed to be there, can be there.
Very nice. I like that.
Yeah, we were just in the process of, and this is probably a really good example of how this looks, but we were in the process of helping a corporation to take their leadership program, which was 4 days. They brought them out of the classroom, flew them in from everywhere, and they did 4 days of like straight content. So, so just think about that, right? So what I learned on Monday, I never went and used. Now it's Friday. I've learned 4 more things on top of that. I can't remember any of your words. Like, what we're really taking back with us is extremely limited. And we've taken people out of the business for a full week. We've taken them from their families. We've flown people in. We've had multiple facilitators. We've paid for all the food. And when you start totaling up that amount of money, what we did for them was we used a Teams platform, and we created a leadership only communication channel, and we split up. So they came to a virtual like Zoom meeting like this once a quarter and did each topic by quarter. And then in between the working sessions, we met every other week for just a general check-in conversation. What are you working on? How did it go? What are you struggling with? How can we help you? Where have you met with success? Really nice, just sort of laid back conversation. And then in the community, we were constantly refreshing information. So little posts, little contests, try this conversation starter, come back, tell us how it went. And we took the same group on a full year journey for probably half the cost.
Wow. And also imagine the camaraderie, right? Being able to talk to people
from, again, like, where do you ever get to be like together as a group and be like, I went and I tried this, and you know what? It didn't work.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. You and I both know this. The first time you try something, it never goes well, ever. It never goes well. And you know what 99% of the people do? Well, that didn't work. I'm never doing that again. And it's done. But it's like the third time. And so when you hear that someone else experienced that same thing, when you hear, well, oh, you know what? I never thought of that. that worked for you. I'm gonna go and try that too. You keep people in motion. I think we talked about that earlier. Give them sort of that bravery they need to like get back out there and try again. You know, they're hearing from each other what's working, and they're able to take the synergy and just really make significant results and impact.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in our own program, what's so interesting is we started off just teaching the signature model. And so it was like a 2-month program because we can get you through, and then, you know, you build all your components, and then we were sending people off on their way. And what we found out is it actually backfired. And we were getting terrible reviews. Like they were saying, your system doesn't work, your process doesn't work. I spent all this money, I built this thing. And when we dug into it a little bit further, it wasn't that there was a problem with their course. We didn't stay connected with them long enough for them to market and sell it. So they built all their course, spent all this time, and then they were on their own, and they had no strategies and tools and ability to actually market it and sell it and stay with them through to completion. So we changed our program, made it 6 months, and all 3 components now exist. So not only are we teaching you how to build your signature course, but we're going to give you the best marketing strategies and the best sales strategies so that you can actually go out and sell it and make a huge impact. That was a huge learning for us in the consulting environment.
I love that because
it's
you're
that
right.
idea of how long do you stay connected, so that not only we taught them how to make a great program, right, which was super, but it didn't actually create a result for them. And that's where it fell apart for us. We weren't thinking from our own client's perspective, just ours. So my job, right in my head, my job was, well, I'm the training person. I'm helping them create just a training program. But if they can't market and sell and make a living with that training program, the program was of no value. So
Right.
That's been some really huge learning for us. And when you say like, when you're so afraid to like give it away, we hear this all the time because we teach people this all the time. The number one thing you can do as an entrepreneur is to set yourself out from the crowd and get people to notice you, is to share your expertise. Like you are the expert, you know the best way to make it happen. Think what we're selling is our expertise, but that's not true. What people need from you is to stay connected to you while your expertise becomes their expertise. So you can give everybody every last how-to video you have for free, because that is not going to create a result for them. That is only going to create awareness. And quite frankly, if they come to you as a client after they've been consuming your information for long enough, you're already a step ahead of the game because they've already got like the mental memory down. And now you really are ready to like get them right into implementation mode. I know you have the free Facebook group, wherever you want to do it. You can put it on YouTube, you can do it in a Facebook group, you can send them out through email drips, you can, you know, there's so many different ways, host challenges. We teach a whole strategy around it. It almost doesn't matter what you do, just as long as you are sharing your expertise, because that's how you become known. That's what draws people to you. You don't have to worry that they're going to just use everything, and you know, they actually can't. they actually can't. They can't implement. They don't have your brain that figured out how to implement it. And then when I say to people all the time, they're not hiring you for your course. They're not hiring you for your, you know, your how-to. They're hiring you because you are the one that's going to get them where they need to go. And for my larger companies, when I say you, it's the collective you. So it's you and whatever team you've built in your likeness that can deliver the same message. So, you know, in your early parts of your career, you really are going to be the one leading all of those sessions. But as your group grows, the people that you hire to do the different pieces become the you that, you know, I'm collectively speaking of.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're right.
So,
And
yeah, so give it away. Give away your free how-to. It is the differentiator for you.
so give.
Give. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, we have the free Facebook group, the Profit First Masterclass. And I love it when someone's been absorbing content for a while, because what that means is when they jump in, when they actually begin to work with us, we get to jump in at such a deeper level. We can just skip the basics and jump into the meat and really have massive change. So you're absolutely right. There is no shortcutting yourself and giving away as much as you can. So definitely.
As a matter of fact, we're in this whole kick where we're trying to get authors to give the book away for free and pay for the program. So the book becomes a part of the program, or the book is the entry into the program, or the program, like for me personally, I've not gotten around to that yet. I'm not sure if that's in my wheelhouse, but you would get the book for free when you purchased your time with me. And it just like would depend on your strategy, right? So if you're using the book to show you're an expert, to drive people to a program, love that philosophy. Or I love it the other way, where you're in the program so you get the book. But either way, it's not the book that is actually creating the change that people want. Like that's sort of the downside to the book. You know, people like the self-help industry is amazing, and the books out there are amazing. But if you can't stay connected to the expert behind that book, your ability to implement it is very, very slim. And then what do people do? They go, oh, that book was no good, right? They're like, oh, that doesn't work. I read that book. That doesn't work. It wasn't the book. It was the staying connected long enough to make it work for you.
Exactly. And it's interesting, Susan, because I work with a lot of authors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the rumors that is out there that a lot of people say that read books is, they never get past chapter 3. Most people
Oh,
never read past chapter 3. Life happens, kids happen, things happen. They never get past chapter 3, but they know that they bought the book for a reason. Problem's still there. And you're right. Just knowing that you wrote the book, that you've got that expertise makes you first on the list to get called, right? When it's actually time to reach out and get that help. So that's
yeah.
good on
You
that
have
side.
to like just know what your intention is behind your book. If you're writing a book because you think people are going to read it and change their lives, you're actually missing, a vital step in there. But if you're writing the book because you want to be the expert that people come to change their lives in whatever way, then you're spot on. And let me share, like, this is how you know, like, when you start to see it happening in different parts of your world or your life, you're onto something. And the name is going to escape me. I'm going to have to get back to you. But there is a new watch on the market, a high performance watch for elite athletes that want to like beat marathon times. And, they're into like all the body mechanics, and like, they're really like, this is a really high performance watch. You can't buy the watch. I think this is so fascinating. You can buy a 6-month subscription to their community and they give you the watch. And when you are done with your 6-month subscription, you can leave the community and keep the watch. And it just sort of spoke to me on such an amazing level. I'm like, they get it. Because if I buy that watch and I put that watch on my wrist, but I've not had anyone to connect me to how to use it, to challenge me, motivate me, to talk to me, then it's not going to be as effective for me. And my view of how good that watch is going to be significantly impacted. So they've sort of taken that whole thing out of the equation. And they're saying, not only are you going to get a watch, but you're going to stay connected to us while you learn how to best implement every single feature of this watch for yourself in a way that works for you, and keep the watch. So I thought that was amazing. I was like, oh, wow, this is the trend. I hope we continue to see that in lots of our products and services, because it is that whole philosophy of, it's staying connected. And if you look at, like, not to sort of like say anything negatively about Fitbit, because I think Fitbit is an amazing product, but if you look at the results, people don't lose weight with Fitbit.
No, I can
Because they
imagine.
haven't, like, exercise is only part of the equation. So if you're only dealing with the exercise and you're not influencing all the other factors, now that might not be why you bought the Fitbit watch. So you might not be an unhappy customer, but if you bought the watch saying, if I walk my 10,000 steps every day, everything is going to change for me, and it doesn't, then all of a sudden, you're not really getting what you thought you were getting. So.
And then you're like, that's a terrible watch, right?
Terrible watch. That watch does not work at all. When there's nothing
anyway.
wrong with the watch. Walking 3 miles a day is a great goal to have, but you need to have a bunch of other things with it.
You need a cheerleader, right? So did you walk today?
Yeah, sure.
It reminds me, I've been guilty of like going on different diet programs my entire life. I actually had a personal trainer for like almost 2 years. I was like working out with this trainer, and I was like, I'm just not losing weight, And you're right. It's because I needed somebody. The real issue was the eating, right? The eating and like portion size, and like having someone stand over your shoulder and go, did you really go get that pint of ice cream? And you're right. That's exactly where that coach, that constant being in that program, that's someone that's going to hold you accountable for your own success is so important, right? It's not just the know-how. I mean, we all know that eating a pint of ice cream is not healthy. It's it's an accountability if you got on the scale and it didn't give you the result that you wanted.
You're right on. And if you think about this and like the how-to, so the Fitbit is like the how-to, right? So one of the things you need to do is walk every day, and tracking that you've been doing that on a regular basis. And, that's like the how-to stuff is a great component, but who's the coach? Where are you getting everything else that you need from? So spot on. Yeah, spot on.
Susan, who is the best candidate for creating an online program like this? Who should be considering this type of program?
That's a great question. We kind of look at it in two ways, and it depends on what your business goals and objectives are. Let's take you for an example in the Profit First. It is an amazing sort of free upfront program that connects you to a new audience, that gives people to see you as the expert that you are, to develop that know, like, and trust. And ultimately, a portion of those people will hire you for their accounting services. So that's a very natural progression where having a program, and again, like, depending on what the outcome is, the elements to them are very different, but having either a regular Facebook group or some sort of challenge or some sort of learning experience that takes place over a little bit of time will connect you into brand new audiences. That's a great place to do it. For those that actually use their expertise to sort of train individual companies, so we work with a lot of coaches, consultants, that type of thing. This philosophy can become so normally what we see is like they've created like a 5-day training class, or they've created a workshop, or, they go in and they do a workshop, but they're selling like a one-time service. Incorporating more of these pieces gives you the opportunity to upsell and cross-sell. So they're hiring you. Like I said, nothing wrong with the course. We love a course. So if it's working for you really, really well, and you want to go into corporations, we don't want people to stop doing that, but what else can you add on to enrich the experience, create a bigger result for your client, but then it's also reoccurring revenue for you. So just simply taking your current model and offering a 6-week follow-up, whether it be Zoom coaching, whether it be a private community, we have sort of a whole list of things you could add on. All of a sudden, you're increasing the level of your sale, and you're increasing the level of impact that you're providing to your client. And quite frankly, that level of impact becomes your social proof that helps you sell to new people. So the second you can say, or the second one of your clients says, because of XYZ, I was able to increase, decrease, build, change, whatever, by a certain percentage, next thing you know, somebody's like, well, I want you to do that for me too. And normally we don't get that kind of feedback from a 4-day workshop. Like the feedback you'll get from a 4-day workshop is it was good, I learned a lot, they gave me new things to think about, but that doesn't sell. Like results sell. So for that piece, keep what you're doing, but just expand your services that you offer to include things that keep you connected. It's good for them and it's good for you, like from a revenue standpoint.
No, I definitely like it.
I know, like that's like the easiest thing people do. A lot of times that's what they'll come to us first. They'll say, listen, what we have is working, but how can we make more money? How can we create a bigger impact? It's these things that are going to do that. And, we can help you figure out, you can figure out those pretty quickly. Other thing people come to us a lot for is sort of like the scale. And this is especially true of companies that do, big companies that do a lot of like classroom-based training, where every time they get a new client, they have to get a whole new team to go out and service that client. And they're flying around the country and they're doing all these training. And we all know the expense behind that. What we'll do is just flip the model so that when you get the new client, we build you the program that trains people in that client's company to be you. They do all of the day-to-day how-to training, and then you connect them back in with whatever on demand or with whatever module or we'll build you the on-demand module and you stay connected, on the other way and then you can really scale and grow without having to add headcount every time you get like a new client. Because at some point you max out, your trainers can only go so far. And then again, your trainers turn into more of like the performance coach as opposed to just the person in the classroom all the time. And then full on, we can take you from an individual one-on-one client perspective to a multi-client perspective. So, and we've done that in our own business as well. So we build bespoke type things for larger companies, but we can service a huge audience at a much lower price point because we're not doing the work for them. We're just leading them through the process. So once you build it all, in a couple of test cases, then you're simply servicing. And you can have, somebody that's paying on a monthly basis and bringing in a whole new, set of revenue or a whole new audience of people with your same content. So we just are sort of taking what you already do and figuring out how do we put it up front so that you can attract more people? How do we extend what you're already doing? And then how do we completely flip it into something that's generating a brand new income stream, really? So it's like amazing because I don't feel like anybody ever thinks about training as like the number one business driver or a number one driver of business in your business, but it really has the ability to hit all three of those areas, which is kind of really cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I can't tell you how many people come to us for profit first services, but then they don't have financial statements. So now we can't dig into the numbers to find out exactly where the problem is. And so that creates an opportunity then for the accounting services, right? And then tax compliance or even strategic tax planning too, if they're at that level. So you're right. It's being able to build on from what you have, just the entry level and build it on that way too. Now, here's a question, Susan, that I know our audience is dying to hear, right?
Oh, I can't wait. They're
dying to hear this. They want to know the money. They want to know like how much they can make. Like, what are you seeing in terms of pricing for this thing? And I know this is a different model, right? Because you're not doing one-on-one coaching now, one-on-one consulting. You're doing one to many. So Susan, I'm going to let you answer that question that our audience is dying to hear.
Honestly, it's a little mind-blowing. It's almost a little mind-blowing. You can charge a certain amount of money, whatever you do for your, bespoke programs, but the sky becomes the limit as far as how many people you can service at one time. So we tend to see our 6-month programs priced on the lower side between $3,000 and $5,000, and on the higher side, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, depending on how long it's a 6-month commitment, a year commitment. And if you are regularly launching, regularly building your pipeline and bringing people in, you can easily add 6 figures like that. You can easily add multiple 6 figures. You can create $1 million businesses out of selling your product over and over again. And believe it or not, it doesn't take as long as you think it would to get it there. And this is the other thing. So this is the other thing that blows people's minds, is one of the big barriers for people. They're like, well, I can't, it's so expensive, right? All the upfront is so expensive. I have to record all this video, I have to do all this stuff. We actually have you serving from day one, and we never encourage anyone to build in a vacuum. We'd rather see you host it as a lower dollar price item, knowing that you're in developmental stage, because we want you building for what people need, not what you think they need. And the only way to find out what people need is to give it to them and let them tell you what worked and what didn't, and innovate and change and innovate and change. So we help companies. We could literally get you up and servicing and like offering a workshop within 6 weeks of time. If you're being really aggressive, we're going to put it at a much lower price point. We're going to help you to use the right language, because you don't want to go out and say, well, we're piloting it, we don't know if this is going to work or not. I mean, when you think about it, you are your ideal client, right? It's already worked for you. So whatever you've built, whatever you've done, whatever your expertise is, you know that it works. So it's not a question of, is what you're going to do work? It's just a question of, is how you're doing what you're doing working for someone else? And you learn that process as you go. And, again, you can spend gajillions of dollars. And believe me, in my tenure, I have spent gajillions of companies money to build these outrageously big e-learning courses. You absolutely do not need that, because that, remember, is secondary. That is not what they're hiring for. They're hiring to connect with you. And that's not the only way they're ever going to touch you or the content. So we can build on a much simpler scale with a much smaller investment, especially in the beginning, to kind of get those things, up and running. You can make a tremendous amount of money in a very short amount of time with the model and the philosophy.
It sounds like it. I mean, if you have one client that's on training and you said the minimum is 3,000, imagine the more you get and the more profits you're going to get, right? And I imagine that the upfront cost isn't that much either. Susan, I guess I'll let you talk about upfront costs in terms of like, what equipment do we need? What do
That's
you need
great.
to
Yeah,
really be able
great.
to create a program like that?
Great question. I mean, you need, conferencing software. That's a a non-negotiable. Zoom, there's tons of them. Zoom, Blue Jeans, Adobe, Google Hangouts, Google Meets, whatever they're calling themselves. You need to be in an environment like this where you can record, because that's important too. We record and we host. So you need that, at a minimum. You need a place to store your content. So after you have done like a live presentation or whatever you're doing on the back end, you need a place to store that. It's as simple as, like, in Facebook, there's a units tab. You can literally just post things to Facebook in the beginning. And there are so many, this is one of the things we help people, but it's really starting to take hold. So the word Kajabi, they're sort of one of the industry leaders right now, and they are combining all of the features. So you can have a landing page and a selling mechanism and a email list and a place to store your content all in one. And they're not hugely expensive. You kind of need that space to store. And then you're going to need some sort of software to record. We happen to love Camtasia. So Camtasia is a very inexpensive product. They're an amazing service-oriented company. There's videos from day one. You can learn to do minimal editing and things like that to add some value into what you're recording. And they have a sister product called Snagit. So Snagit lets you screen capture and record as well. We use it a lot to repurpose. So whatever you're building in PowerPoint, your Google Slides or something, we'll just start doing the screenshot and the Snagit, and then we turn that into social media posts. Those are my sort of must-have technology pieces. And then you need a platform to start talking to people and selling to people. So, all in, I mean, maybe a couple of $1,000s to get, up and running. And if you're using Facebook, even less, even less. Not huge upfront costs, which is great, because I feel like there's a lot of exploration that needs to happen until you find, kind of what works for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely. I can imagine the margins, once you've invested in an upfront cost, and it's just a matter of really just scaling the program at that point, which is great. I guess there's always that fear of, like, being on camera. I mean, we were lucky we started on YouTube first. We went to podcasting, but I imagine that has to be a big thing for a lot of people.
Oh my gosh. There was a time in my life where I would record a video and have to, like, go lay down and pull the covers over my head. I mean, it's amazing how quickly you can grow, but those are like the things that people struggle with mentally the most, is being in front of camera, having that confidence. It's just sort of one of those things where I actually leave on my site, I leave all of my original videos up there, because I like for people to see the progression. I like to see the progression, from where you're beginning to where you're going. Because there's certainly a lot of, if you don't have a mindset, is that the best way to describe it? There's a lot of mental stuff up there that you're going to need to work through to make yourself be visible in this way. And I don't think there's anybody that hasn't gone through, anyone on the other side hasn't gone through that process. So I highly recommend that as part of your startup costs.
Yes, definitely. What I did, the viewers and listeners, to kind of get over myself was I would literally just watch my videos over and over and over again, like a broken record. And eventually, like, as silly as I looked, as unproud as I was at that moment, I became desensitized to it. So
I love that. I love that, because you know what? I would say the exact opposite. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch anything I recorded. I didn't want to know how bad it was, because I was afraid I wouldn't do it again if I saw, and didn't like what I saw. So I just sort of kept going. I just kept going. I never looked back. I mean, I'll watch them now, but in the beginning, not at all. And honestly, I found for me being visible on social media, posting about, talking about, showing myself as a true expert was, a huge hurdle and challenge to get over. It's one thing to, you can do something for yourself. It's certainly another thing to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, to stand up and say, I have a talent, I have a skill, believe in me. That was a huge growth curve for me as well.
Also, I have an amazing video editor too. She can
Well,
get rid of the
yes.
so I'm having a stuttering fit.
That helps a lot. Yes, that helps a lot. That helps a lot.
Susan, I want to be respectful of your time. One of the things that I love to ask our guests is if you could leave us with one piece of advice, and it can be over training, it could be over anything, it could be business, life, whatever. What would you leave that advice for us entrepreneurs? What would that be?
I feel like I have three. So I'm I'm trying to get down to the one. And sometimes I think it's really a reflection of where you are in the moment, what advice you end up giving. I named my Facebook group The Possibility Project. And it has nothing to do technically with what I offer people, but it was what I needed for me. I needed to believe that it was possible for me. And saying that over and over again was the place that I could start. So I'm at a place now where it's kind of time to rename the group closer to what it really is. But for me, it was almost acknowledging to myself that what was in my head was actually possible. Putting that out there in that way helped catapult me forward. And so that was sort of my very first space. The one I've been working on most lately, I'll give you two instead of three. But the one I've been working on most lately for myself is this idea of you'll see me like this all the time, of letting go. We tend to hold on very, very tight to whatever it is, to your money, to your time, to your resources, to your relationships, to your family, and I have found that the more I go like this and let it out, the more comes back to me. There was a great story, and if anybody knows who, I don't remember where I read it, I wish I could give credit for it, but the basic gist was this grandmother had said to her grandson, hold open your hands, I want to give you $5. She put $5 in his hand, and she said, now close up your hand. And he was holding on to his money, he was so happy. And she said, now I need you to open your hand, I need you to let that money go. And he said, I don't want to let that money go, it's in here, I want it for me. She said, if you never open up and let that money go, there's no way I can give you more. And I was like, wow, that really just spoke to me on such a big, big level. And it really helped me to see where I was holding on too tight, where I was trying to force things that wasn't working, where I was not being receptive to, where something should be going. I have been literally trying for over a year to build this program called Be the CEO of You. And I love this program. And it really is about helping entrepreneurs to become the person that they dream of, that person, that possibility piece. And honestly, it's just not taking hold for me. And I finally just had to, and I was I kept redefining it and calling it something else. And ultimately, when I did this and I let it go, what I realized is that that's not I'm not a mindset expert. That's not my role, but I make a special point to work with mindset people to help them get out in the crowd and to bring their messages to more people. Because ultimately the goal always was for me, I feel like that work that I did a few years ago now literally changed my life, changed my business, changed my relationships with my family. And the world around me is better because of it. I'm better because of it. My products and services are better because of it. And I want everyone to have that. And so in my head, I was trying to give it to them, but ultimately it wasn't that wasn't the way it was supposed to be for me. And it wasn't until I sort of just let it go that the new way that it was supposed to be for me rose up. So I encourage every single one of you to look for where you are holding on too tight and what would happen if you simply unclenched and let it go and see what came back for you. So those are two. The possibility, because sometimes you have to believe that it is possible. And if you don't believe that it is possible, you can't even get started. But then once you're there, how do you continue to go forward is, to be open and to be receptive. So those are my two.
I love that. That is so beautiful, Susan. Like, just don't block your blessings, don't block your blessings, holding on to the things that you're comfortable with.
Blessings. I love that. And honestly, like the form in which they come to you might not be what you were looking for. And if if you only think it can show up in one way, you might be very, very disappointed.
Oh yeah, definitely. And sometimes things show up in a way we didn't anticipate them, but they're actually better over time, right?
Yeah, so true. So true.
Susan Gatti, our viewers want to be able to reach you. What is the best way for our viewers and our listeners to reach out and contact you?
Awesome. Yes, I would love to chat with anyone. We are advisory first and foremost, so we do free sessions all the time. We're happy to evaluate what you're doing currently with your training and set you up for success in the right direction. And you can reach me through my website, which is www.immixid, it's IMMIXID.com. And you can also find me I have my business Facebook page for ImmixID. I'm on LinkedIn through ImmixID, or just simply my name on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in the possibility group, then I welcome anyone that wants to join that as well.
I love that. So guys, you can reach Susan by going to www.immixid.com. She's also on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook, and she has a Facebook group. So that's Susan Getty, Gatti. And we will also put her contact information in our show notes, so you can definitely reach out to her. Thank you, Susan, so much for sharing your knowledge.
I love it
today. Thank you.
And good luck. Please share your expertise with as many people as possible.
Don't hold back, guys. Give.
That's right.